BAI, an engaging hour of cutting-edge conversation not to be missed.
I'm Winsor Muntali, host of Africa Now, and you're tuned to member-supported WPFW Washington.
Welcome to On the Margin with Ethelbert Miller. My guest today is Kambon Obayani. Kambon Obayani is the author of several books, including Argos and Aphorisms, Blue Moon Murmurs. Kambon Obayani is also the owner of Jazz Meyer Productions and Publication. He is living and residing in Tucson, Arizona. How are you doing today?
All right, man. How you doing?
Okay, your wife hook you up,
Yes, she did.
That's why, we want to make sure everything's working. That's why we try to get you on the air early.
Well, it's interesting. The women in our lives, especially for artists, they always put us in order.
All right.
It-
Okay.
Come
I
to the
remember.
rescue.
Okay. You know, I wanted to begin. I mean, you're extremely prolific. But I want to first discuss your book, Argos and Aphorisms. And I was just wondering, is there a special way you want a person to read and use this book?
I think it's probably situational because uh, the inspiration for each of them comes from situations in which I observed or which you pass through life and you see something. So therefore, when something passes in someone's life and something occurs, I would hope that they would pick up the book and just turn to a page and look at something and say, "Wow, okay, here's a thought that
Hmm.
I can refer to as I deal with this situation."
See, I was wondering as I was reading this, I said, I wonder if Cam on him, like, he was getting in trouble, and these are things that his mother or father or great aunt said to him.
I, I had an uncle, two uncles actually, one who was a jeweler and one who was a painter. And they gave me a lot of aphorisms, a lot of wisdoms, but they were different kind of cats.
Hmm.
They were 8 to 5 cats who worked and came home and then did the art when they could. So the things that I would think that when I was like around Michael Harper and Sterling A. Brown, all these people we were talking about before, there was all these, I used to call them ditties, which you constantly be throwing at you as you'd be walking. They'd be saying things that coming out. My uncles then weren't like that. So everything that weren't like that. So what happened is that I began to rely on myself and things that I had experienced in all the, those 14 years I was abroad and never coming back for a total,
Well,
before.
when you mentioned Sterling Brown, some of the times he was saying some things in between them poems. He said they were lies. You know. So why don't you share a few lies with us this morning? I wanted you. I sent you a couple, and I wanted you to first read with the one on page 12.
Okay, on page 12, here we go. There's my marker. Um, the way you treat a man or a woman reflects on how you feel about your mother, father.
Okay, now you
Mhm.
open up the program, and you mentioned about your wife helping you. Okay, now
Mhm.
okay, look at your wife and look at your mother. Is there a connection?
The spirit,
Hmm.
between the spirit. My mom she's 96 now. My mom is very spirited, and my wife is spirited. But there's also something which I realized just the other day. My brothers used to talk about my mom riding the broom because she was insightful, and my great grandmother was a hoodoo woman, a voodoo woman. So that kind of spiritual
Riding
influence.
the broom. Explain that to me. Riding the broom. I'm from the South Bronx. Riding the broom. I mean, translate that into Spanish for me.
Riding the broom is when all those insights be coming from your mom, and she be seen around corners and seen into things that you're doing, or her perception of the world is such that the clarification is there. So when she's riding the broom, she's moving through the world on that broom, which is provides her with insights, and information that she can pass on. And sometimes you get busted because she's riding the broom.
We're riding the broom, man, and it's October, and I'm thinking Halloween just came early.
Well, for you as a Southerner, what would riding the broom mean? It doesn't have any significance.
I'm not a Southerner. That's why I said
Were,
I'm
were
from the
you?
South Bronx, but that ain't the South, brother.
Oh, I thought you were from the up south. I thought you
No, no, yeah,
were
like you like
Washingtonian.
you talking about John Killings, like
Yeah. Oh, you're not a Washingtonian.
no, I'm
Oh,
not a Washingtonian, brother.
are you from the Bronx?
I'm from the Bronx.
Okay.
And then my father was born in Panama. Yeah,
Panamanians.
yeah. So that's a connection there. Well, let's get back to you, man.
Okay.
You have another um bit of wisdom on page 20.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, page 20. But also, you see your mother and the people that you're with, or your father, the people with, and one's frame of reference is always from those first 5 years when you grew up with them. So, they're the things that, the way you treat them, it definitely reflects on who they are because that's who you knew first.
Mm-hmm.
That's so. This one says, removing her heart from her chest, she served it to him on a platter, and when he sliced a piece and added spices, she opened her door and asked him to leave.
Explain that one.
To offer, when people give, they
Mm-hmm.
give freely and they give openly and who they are. And many times when someone wants to change that person, yeah, by adding something, oh, you'd be better this way. It's
Right,
important.
right.
Yeah, you don't want that in your life.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, we're of the same generation. I had a sister who said to me, she said, a woman can read a man within 3 minutes for our generation, baby boomers. For a generation next, was my daughter who's 50 now, they said, we read men in 30 seconds.
And now today it's just pure telepathy.
So if he comes off in a certain way, which is not which is not consistent, doesn't help with their person, with what she's about or he's about, it's not going to work. So it's better to stop it right there.
Okay,
Yes.
well let's read one last one on
Okay.
page because what you just said, I want you to lead into what's on page 50.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It says on the second date, she mentioned she needed money. There was no third.
That sounds like that's something that happened to you.
Ethelbert, man, for our generation, we benefited from the greatest society plan.
Mm-hmm.
We got jobs. We are the ones who really benefited. But some people let the materialism get the best,
Right, right.
right? And they're from that old time philosophy. Well, what a man's supposed to do for a woman, and one
Mm-hmm.
of them you're supposed to give her money,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, some people didn't cater to that philosophy. No, if we've met twice, and already you asking me for money, that means that what you're interested in is not me,
Right.
is the financial aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, talking about financial aspect, you have been able to run, Jazz Maya productions and publications. Just
Hmm.
talk about um, that skill that you had in terms of putting together an organization to put out your work.
Okay, we have Jazzmeyer Productions publication. The name of it comes from uh, my granddaughter Jasmine and my daughter, whose name is Ayana. So that's where Jazzmeyer comes from.
Hmm.
I worked for Doubleday under Marie Brown.
Oh, yeah, she's like the godmother of the literary agents.
Yes, but she was a literary. She was an editor at
Yeah,
that time,
right. A double
Doubleday,
day. Yeah.
and I studied under her. She gave me
Hmm.
projects. There's a book out called 400 Years of African American Art with uh, all these artists, Charles Johnson, oh,
Oh, yeah, right, right. I remember that
Romeo
book. Yeah.
Bearden, and all those. Well, I edited that.
Yeah, with
And
Clarence Majors in there, I think.
yes, all of
Right,
I
right.
learned how to edit, how to organize from watching Marie Brown and looking at what was going on in Doubleday. Yeah,
Hmm.
I noticed that at Doubleday, Ethelbert, nothing started until 10 o'clock, but people worked from 10 o'clock to 8.
Mm-hmm.
disciplined religiously, and they stayed on it. When one was there was always conference going on with
Mm-hmm.
projects, so that everybody was in the loop. So basically, in terms of organizing Jazz Maya, what I did was that I got some reliable people who would work with me, and we set up this organization so that
Mm-hmm.
we took care of covers, we take care of editing, all of that, and it's based on that model,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And then, but I found something else. There was a magazine called Flash Magazine coming out of LA, which was, and Langston Hughes helped the people and the poets and writers in LA put it together.
Mm.
They had a whole different structure. So as Jasmine developed, I kept looking at what they were doing, and I thought, wow, yeah, look at the organization between pictures and word, between it, all it was there, and that
Mm-hmm.
really took me, it got us over the hump.
Well, you also collaborated with a friend of yours, Walter Williams. Talk about your relationship with him. He's your illustrator.
Yeah, Slim, he's worked for the Department of medicine. I can't remember, but it is. And Slim is an artist, medical doctor during the day, DOD, not DOD, DO something. He works as a medical doctor during the day, and is an artist at night.
Mm-hmm.
And we've known each other since 1974. As a matter of fact, we were hungry and we shared a loaf of bread together
Mm-hmm.
as undergraduates. So Dr. Williams is a guy who has an interesting perception. He's always tuned in, always tuned in. The way that I used to, when I was around Baraka, and you knew him better than I. When I
Mm-hmm.
was Baraka, I was watching him, and it looked like he was taking in everything that was going in the room, but he wasn't moving. His head, it was, he was taking in everything, you know, and then he started kind of moving his mouth. He took out a little piece of paper and started scribbling on it. And when I walked towards him, he took it and put it in his pocket and leaned back and just gave me this look. You know what I mean? So Slim has that kind of perception. Not on the level as Baraka, but that's kind of
Right.
cat he is.
Well, let's go back. I'm glad you mentioned Marie Brown because the scholar Dana Williams at Howard University just produced this book, Tony at Random, and looking
Mhm.
at Toni Morrison as an editor. We think of her as a novelist, winner of the Nobel Prize, but she's been an
Mhm.
editor at a long time. And I remember, I
Right.
mean, when you think about Double Marie Brown at Doubleday and then Toni Morrison at Random House, a lot of books, we have to be grateful for. I mean, when you mentioned Marie Brown called me up and asked if I wanted to do this anthology, which became In Search of Color Everywhere. But
Wow.
that started out as a Marie Brown book because she was talking to Stuart Tabor and Chang at that time. But
Mm.
I've wondered in terms of Marie Brown, as you said, working with her, what drove her to say, "I'm going to give up this position as an editor and get into become an agent"?
She loves writers,
Okay.
and she believes in the word. And some, in their own way, would call her a literary nationalist
Mm-hmm.
because she is very much grounded in the tradition and believes in it. And it was something interesting. She comes out of those black schools,
Mm-hmm.
like
Well,
you
that's
were
the same thing. That's the same thing with Toni Morrison because
with Toni.
when you look at the book that she was doing earlier with like Huey Newton, Stokely Speaks,
Exactly. Man
yeah.
Child in the Promised Land. It's
Well, let
Tony.
me ask you a key question now. You in
Go
there?
ahead.
Did what about we go back? We see this sort of like racism within the publishing industry. Did you
Yeah,
witness that?
very much so. Very much. So the word I heard in those Dover offices, they would drop with like, "Oh, it's one of those books,"
Hmm.
and it would infuriate me. Yes, because it was very subtle, but that would be the word. Uh, Also, when I was first starting out and I was in New York in 1977, one gentleman said to me, "We love your book, but we don't publish a lot of Black books, and we don't have the facility to market it. We wouldn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, let
So
me ask you this when you talk about the marketing, and I also want you to talk about your company and how you
mhm,
handle the marketing and distribution.
mhm,
One of the things about the marketing was, people are saying, okay, black people don't buy books, but then we also see at the time that you were at the Doubleday, the rise of black studies and the rise of
yes,
black bookstores.
yes, nationally, everywhere, and internationally. And it was important. And Miss Morrison and Marie Brown, they were very much the trailblazers for that. Yes, because they put out black books and they knew how to market them. And that, people who said black people don't buy books is like black people don't support jazz. It's a damn lie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
On right a line right now. What's that? The AA, the African American Association of Book Dealers, or something like that. There's a circuit to us. They will connect you to every bookstore in the United States that sells African American, African centered books.
Mm-hmm.
And they stay in business because black people are out there buying books, especially the baby boomers.
Right.
Yeah, we
Right.
came of age on Toni Morrison.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you look at the book that I mean, you have a variety of textbooks, things like that. When you look at, let's say, the books that we're talking about today, the Argos and Aphorism, who's your target audience? When somebody say, okay, this company is producing books. I'm thinking of some company like Lee and Low, who's doing children's books.
Mhm,
You have so many different types of books. Who would
mhm.
you say is your target audience? And you in Tucson, Arizona.
I'm in, I'm tired of Tucson, Arizona. I'm an LA cat. I'm from LA, West Side.
Lower, what they call Lower Alabama, right?
Yeah, very much so. With Sugar Hill too, there, right? Our target audience, I would have to say, are the reading public, nationally and internationally, because we have a series on tales from Uzbekistan.
Hmm.
Yes, we have books by Abdullahi from the Sudan. Yeah, called The
Hmm.
Merchant and we have writers, religious writers. We have uh, pimps and people from the street. So we have a reading public. We have translations from Spanish and
Right.
into Spanish. So we're in the reading market.
Well,
That's what,
talking about reading, Margaret, I want you to read and prepare our listeners. It's not that long, but I found that this story that you have in Blue Moon Murmurs vignettes, I thought it was very interesting. I mean, one is this is about the Hmong people who, I was just wondering. I know you've done a lot of traveling, and
Mhm.
so this I said you must have been in Vietnam, but if you're talking about Hmong because of their history, and I know many of them reside today in the United States. They reside in Minnesota,
Minnesota. That's the
right? So
community.
talk about this short vignette of shame, and then share it with our listeners.
My brother did 4 tours of Vietnam, and I was at one time I was married to an Aboriginal woman from Taiwan, and the Hmong and the Taiwanese Aboriginals are cousins. They speak the same language, even though one is in Vietnam and one is in Taiwan, in China, basically. And so when I lived with the Taiyachu in Taiwan, and we had a daughter. I have a daughter, and I observed what was going on when I came back to the States in 1990. What was going on with the Afro-Asian communities,
Right.
yeah, and parenting and what was going on. And what I was observing was that those children were living some double, sometimes triple lives.
Hmm.
And many of them were ashamed of their dads.
Especially those who were in, say, grew up in Vietnam,
Grew up in Vietnam,
and say
so
not necessarily the U.S., but
but when they came here,
hmm
what they learned, and this is from children who were going to Fairfax, and what they learned was that being Asian was an advantage because the Anglo community considered them as close with them, but having the African American father was problematic.
Okay, let's hear this story, Shane.
You know, I'm a murderer. I'm 16 and I'm a murderer. I'm a murderer and I killed the one who really loved me. I'm a murderer and even my friend Tori, she's Korean, knows it. She's sitting across the room looking at me with her hands like a shovel trying to scoop up her tears and pour them into her bucket of hurt between her knees. I was Tori's best friend and she was mine, but now I don't know because she knows I killed him. My sister is sitting next to Tori and she won't look at me or come near me. I feel the knot on my head where my sister hit me yesterday when she came into the house. My mom, our mom, pulled her off me. I wanted her to keep hitting me though because I'm a murderer and she knows I killed him. Everyone knows I killed him and I'm sitting here alone now as a murderer at 16 and looking at him. He's in a casket and he's my father. He's my father and I killed him. I killed him. I killed him. I killed him. I walked in alone before everyone arrived and looked at him. I hate the powder they put on his face. I hate it because he'd hate it. He didn't use the word hate, but I knew he wouldn't like it. He didn't like it when he was on TV for his book, excuse me, and they wanted to put makeup on him. He refused and his face shined on TV. He was like that, always shining and working for us. My mom, my sister, and me. I'm 16 and my sister's 24. She was born in 1971 during the Vietnam War. My dad was a soldier and I was born in 1979 after the war. We were both born in Laos and we're Hmong, or they're Hmong, and I don't know what I am, but people say I'm Chinese because we all speak it and let them, though I know it's not true. I'm Hmong. They call me whatever they want as long as they let me be. They can't call me, excuse me. I'm not like my sister. I'm not like her because she tells everyone she's Black and Hmong. She says that because it's true for her, but not for me because of my father. The man whose sperm I have isn't Black. He's Hmong, but I don't even know him. I only know my dad stiff in the casket dead, and I killed him. He came back from America after 9 years and got my mom, my sister, and me. Before that, he came back. He came every year before I was born and after I was born. And finally, when I was 11, he brought us to the US. That's when it started. That's when the look started. And when he'd come to school to pick me up or for teachers' conferences, people would look and whisper. My Asian friends would look and whisper. They smiled when it was me and my mommy, but not when he came. If he'd speak to me in Hmong or Chinese, if we were somewhere, I'd pretend I didn't understand, so he'd repeat it in English. People liked me because I was Asian, but didn't like me if I was with him. I asked mommy to only come to events and conferences. And when she told him, I watched his shoulders sag, but he stopped coming for me. He gave me everything I wanted and was always there for me. He listened to me and gave me all his knowledge. He was a professor and almost famous, but that didn't stop the looks and comments, so I wouldn't go with my mommy and sister to places where they honored him, and he knew it. That's why I killed him. I didn't want to, but I had to kill him. I had to do it. He came to pick me up from the mall because mommy was sick and I was with my Asian friends. He stood waiting for me, and when they saw him, they stopped talking. I said he was my stepfather loud, and their silence cut my heart. He waited for me, and when I went to him, he put his arm around me, and I pulled away from him. I pulled away from him, and I moved away from him, and he made a sound like a hurt animal, but let me walk in front of him like I wasn't with him. His body slumped when I got in the back seat of the car instead of the front seat because my friends could see us, and his chin trembled as he drove. My friend Tori saw it all and waved to him. He waved back. He helped Tori and her family get their papers and let them live in one of our apartments a year for free, and helped her mother and father get a job at the university where he taught. Tori loved him. Now she hates me, and I can see it in her eyes. Her mother was with my dad when it happened, when I killed him. He went to his office at the university after taking me home and waiting until I went inside our big house, then fell dead in his office. His heart broke and I broke it. I broke it and killed him. And that's why I'm a murderer. Oh, Daddy, I'm so, so sorry.
You're listening to Kambon Obayani reading his story, Shame, from this book, Blue Moon Murmurs. Thank you for that reading, Kambon. And anything you want to add to this? How many years ago was this written?
I wrote this book in 2023, 20, yeah, I think it was 24. Yeah, 23, 24. I've written 26 books, counting the textbooks, Ethelbert. Sometimes you know how it is, being
Right.
the consummate writer you are.
Well, let me ask you about one book. And just we want you to talk about this book, and
Mhm.
then we have a little break. One book which I thought this is completely different in style that you wrote, uh, actually 11 years ago, is
Mhm.
Island of Song.
Yes.
Just talk about that. I mean, you sort of hinted at, your travels and stuff. And this seems to be outgrowth of this. But talk about this because I felt the writing in this was completely different from the ones that you had been, the others like Blue Moon Murmurs and stuff like it's like a completely different style.
The style came out of the voices and the songs of the Taiyachu in China. Uh, Ethelbert, man, the Native American experience in the United States is duplicated in Taiwan. And the United States assisted the Chinese, not the mainline Chinese, but the Taiwanese, in subduing and putting the Native Americans on reservations. But they have a vibe about them, and that is so energetically peaceful that when you're there, first of all, the reservation where they live is above the treetops and at the top of the mountains. So when you look out, you are looking at the tops of trees and the sky, and it's like you can reach out and grab a cloud and pull it down and put it in your pocket. And they have these songs that they sing in this humming that's going on 24/7. And I never found out in 5 years where it was coming from. And when I asked him about it, nobody would say anything. Finally, I met an elder guy. He was just walking along and he transitioned the next day. Had big, long hoops in his ears, tattoos from his nose to his top of his head, down his chin and under both eyes and down. And he was walking along, and I prostrated before him and I said, Baba, what is the source of the sound? And he put his hand to his heart and he said, it's here and it's coming through all of us.
Well, that's a good place for us to take a little break.
Okay.
Because it's coming through all of us, and I'm listening to my guest Kambon Obayani, and he is sharing his work today.
Can I say something before we
Sure.
go to break? My admiration for you is unfathomable. You are one of the baddest mofos in the mofoing world, Negro.
Okay,
I would,
now we're gonna go to a station break. Okay. On that note, the show's on the margin. My name is Ethelbert Miller. The station's WPFW 89.3 FM.
Yeah. Yo, man, how many books have you
This
written,
is your
Ethelbert?
social justice calendar for the week of September 29th,
Ethelbert.
2025.
Oh,
On
okay.
Thursday, October 2nd, from 7 to 9 p.m., Africa World Now Project and Bloom Bars present the film, The Story of Lovers Rock by Menelik Shabazz, a story about the Black British music experience, racial tension in the UK in the late 70s and 80s at Bloom Bars, 3222 11th Street Northwest, Washington, D.C. Information at www.bloombars.com. On Friday, October 3rd, from 6 to 8 p.m. at Seekers Church, there will be a Vote Forward community letter writing event on 276 Carroll Street, Northwest, which will encourage people to get to the polls. For more info, email sandra@seekerschurch.org. On Saturday, October 4th, from 12 noon to 5 p.m., New Hope Baptist and Plymouth Congregational UCC churches host the annual Community Festival, where there will be social justice speakers, social action tables, and more. 5301 North Capitol Street near Fort Totten Metro and bus lines. For more info, call 202-723-5330. WPFW's Social Justice Calendar connects you to grassroots activism in the DMV. Submissions can be emailed to socialjustice@wpfw.org. Please include the name, date, and address of the event. This is due by Thursday at 5 p.m. at least 1 week in advance of your event. WPFW's Social Justice Calendar helps build a better world, one broadcast at a time.
Okay, we're back on the margin with my guest, Kambon Obayani, and he is a writer living in Tucson, Arizona, also a publisher in terms of his company, Josh Meyer Productions and Publications. I want to take you back, Kambon, to something we were talking about. You mentioned you went to Brown University, and I want
Yes.
you to talk about two people. One, your professor, and then one of your colleagues. And that is talk about Michael Harper and Gail Jones. Let's talk about Michael Harper first, but in terms of his importance to you personally as a teacher, and how did he instruct you? When I think of Michael Harper, I think anybody comes through him is going to get a heavy dose of Sterling Brown and Melvin Tolson.
Yes. Yes. Michael encouraged my lyricism because I worked on it. I worked very hard on that. And if you see the other books, and it comes out in Bird Island, Island of Song, comes out in there most. I loved Jean Toomer, Jean Toomer, if you wish. And I could hear that. And Michael was not a professor who instructed. He said nothing to you. And when there was a final product, he would say something. But all the time you were writing, he said nothing. He was a tough cat, man. A lot of
He was a
people.
big guy too.
Yeah, a lot of people said he was a bully.
Mm.
You know, he wasn't like that. He was just a tough cat, and his dad was. He grew up. You know, he had to be tough. He was a big dude, and he said, and I was a big yellow nigga, and everybody wanted to try me. So I had to show him that this big yellow nigga wasn't afraid. Because yellow niggas were considered weak when he was coming along. So he had that toughness about him. And but he loved lyricism. He loved Melvin B. Tolson, and he worshiped Sterling A. Brown. And he brought them. Mr. Tolson wasn't alive. Mr. Brown was there, and Michael, the look in his eyes, and I thought Sterling A. Brown walked on water, you know, because the way he moved and his jokes and whatever. So that was Michael. Gail was a silent friend who does not speak, afraid of elevators and going up escalators, and speaks 7 languages, reads 11 languages, and believes in silence and in working and getting inside the character. Michael Harper used to say something to both of us. He used to say, you all, and remember this. And he said, and I learned this from Sterling Brown. And we were on the edge of our chair. And he said, write with the intent to evoke. Yeah, write with the intent to evoke. And so that when you write, the words and everything rises off the page.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a song there, the reader can hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they can hear the musicality, they can see it.
Mm-hmm.
And so Gail, that's what she does. And she such a vivid and avid reader that she
Talk about her interest in Brazil, with Brazil.
well, she cursed me out for not being in touch with her when I lived in Brazil. She was so angry with me because she feels as if Brazil is the heart of Africanisms.
Mm-hmm.
She says it all comes together in Brazil for all of us around the world through the diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you dig into the roots of Brazil, you're going to find everything that we all do, and it's all there. And all you have to do is get past the language, and we got it. And that was happened. Also because of what happened in Brazil, with the Colombos, which are maroon societies, they built a whole nother world that coexisted in Brazil along with the Portuguese world. So that
Mm-hmm.
you've got the Catholicism, like in religion, and they also have Umbanda in Portuguese, or Nago, which means down there, because the Africans would say, "Where's our religion?" And they would say down there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Babe, I need a plug. They would say down there. So that's how it developed. So you have the Catholicism, which is the Western, and the African right there. Yes. And you have
Mm-hmm.
both elements. And then you got the Native Americans who look like us, but have different cultural rhythms and the poetry and the sound of it. The Native Americans sing through their nose in their poetry. Etheridge, man.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like them cats from down some of the blues singers, how they sing through their nose. You know that you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
That's what it sounds like, and
I'm
it's
I'm I'm trying to write through my nose, if you understand what I'm
I
trying to
hear you.
say.
I hear you.
Let me ask you a question about this, because
Only 10% left, baby.
we're probably talking about, Gail Jones, and there is a complexity. I felt that her work changed with the book Mosquito.
Yes.
That it just completely, the depth and the texture just got richer.
It,
Corregidor and Evers Man was sort of like vignettes when you say. It just seems like she really reached her stride with that book,
she
Mosquito.
found her home.
Mm.
She found her home, and she really found her voice. Eva's man, with the guy, he had the stroke, and one foot was turning out
Mhm.
the master, and he was evil. All those elements that she brought in from the States, those I stopped because I've always been searching for this world, for this word. When we deal with the other elements of reality in our world, which are not physical, what is it? What's the word for that, Etheridge, man?
Ethelbert, yeah, so you commune with Ethridge Knight.
Ethelbert. I'm sorry, Ethelbert. What is the adjective for that? What is the nomenclature? What would
Well,
like?
you know what it is? Because this is not a call in right now, I'm certain that somebody knows the word that you're trying to find.
Yeah, it's like when when
Yeah,
reading Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
right, right. The magical realism, things like that.
They say magical, but it's something else for us. That's what Gail found.
Mm-hmm.
She found that something else, and her work changed. When she did the healing, I was surprised. I thought, what are you coming back to this for? Where's this? But she told me that manuscript had been sitting in there for 17 years.
Let me ask you, could you make a connection? I'm thinking another woman, when you talk about healing, things of that sort. I'm thinking of Tony Barra. I'm thinking like
Yeah.
the Salt Eaters book, like that. That where she's dealing with the environment, she's dealing with everything,
Everything.
and then somebody could also say you could bring Toni Morrison back into that.
Very much so with the Tulis, the twins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in Sula, right? They were around each other so much that they start looking alike.
Right.
And what she say, uh, boy, 73 is something. I was trying to think of the guy who she said he tried to climb back on in my womb. His mother had cut off one leg in Sula. Right. But he tried to climb back in her womb, so she burned him and set him on
Right, fire, right.
right.
The
So
cleansing.
yeah. So go ahead. I lost your question. What was the
No,
question?
no, I'm just looking at I want to make a connection between, you know, the right, going back to you in terms of Brown University and Michael Harper and others, that when we talk about writers, should we direct writers towards understanding more about their folklore, more about, their music, as opposed to sometimes you're just in a workshop and you say, I just want to be a writer, I'm just writing, but you're not plugged into the source. Like when you talk about Gil Jones seeing Brazil as a certain way, that seems that you could reach that point at a certain point in your career as a writer. Oh, I know Brazil is this, or the fact that you say she speaks like X number of languages.
Mhm.
Where somebody would say the future of black writers is to be able to speak Portuguese and Spanish and English. I mean, all these things because the diaspora is that huge.
The diaspora. I speak Spanish and Portuguese and all those languages too. Diaspora knows more about us than we know about them.
Hmm.
They're reading us.
Hmm.
They love us the way they love, jazz, funk, hip hop, blues, soul, gospel. Yeah, all
No,
right.
that's a good lead into a book you were sending me all these books, and then you said, "Can I send you the book about Junior Walker?" I said, "Man, I got enough books, but let's move in to Junior Walker and music. I mean, this is WPFW, this is a jazz station. But talk about you have we talk about Junior Walker, who died in 1995, and you had songs like
Mm-hmm.
Shotgun and What Does It Take to Win Your Love. Talk
For me,
about how you got interested in terms of Junior Walker.
my brother, who was an actor, Raphael Juan Noble, he ran across Junior Walker's son, one of his sons, and when he was said he couldn't find anybody to write the book because he couldn't find anybody who had the sensibilities, to use his word. He said musical sensibilities, and my brother said, my brother. And so I met with Derek, and he was excuse me, I met with the Junior Walker's son, and he was very, very, very cautious and very suspicious
Hmm.
because the family and what had happened and everything. So I play saxophone also, and so when we started talking about music and everything. And I said to him, "How was Junior in the studio?" And he looked at me, and said, "Yo, man, nobody's ever asked that. You got the gig."
Hmm.
And that's how it started. It was the most gratifyingly frustrating experience I've ever had in my life. Okay, Junior was a very, very deep man, very complex individual, very, very complex. And studying him, researching and talking to people, I've never encountered anyone who people talked about in that way. At one time, they said he could be the kindest and give his complete salary for a night to somebody who he saw hurting. And the next instance, walk around the corner and he take a tire iron and hit somebody in the head within minutes of each other. That and and play the horn and scream and everything and go out and go home at night and sleep for 12 hours after a gig. Just things, just all kinds of things. Taking out his teeth to get a certain sound on the horn. What kind of fool does that? So that's how it got, and it was a wonderful experience in learning him. It was frustrating that when you're dealing with the music business, which is a very ugly business, it brings out some qualities in people and amongst families, which is not always
Well,
pleasant.
let's talk about that because you were talking earlier about Doubleday and your time there, and I asked you about what you saw. Looking at the music world and looking at the literary world, what are some of the things of caution that you would tell a young person to look out for?
Take business classes, and learn how to read contracts, and learn how some math so that you can know when to get your royalties. And the first thing to insist on and to look out for is anybody who does not want to give you your masters. You better be careful because they're trying to control you.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's interesting, not to get political and or to be these conspiracy theories. It's interesting that all of our this generation behind us, which came along, as soon as they start asking for their masters, they all end up dead. All of them. It's you know. But I want to jump back to something.
Go ahead. Okay.
You mentioned Tony Capenbauer. Tony was the love of my life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we wrote letters in her books, and Linda Holmes
Linda
published.
Holmes, yeah, Linda was one of her students and then also a biographer.
Right. And so Linda and I, we talked a lot, but Tony could loved to play piano, but could not play. She was a terrible piano player, but she loved to play. But she heard music,
Mm-hmm.
the musicality, the spirituality. Tony was with a group of sisters who were levitating Ethelbert, man.
Mm-hmm.
They were levitating and dropping. So and Tony believed in signs and symbols and that and this comes back to young people. Tony believed that if we looked into the folklore of Americanisms, Afro-Americanisms, we could never go wrong because everything we needed is right there.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, let me throw out another name, whether you cross paths with her, and that's Verda Mae Grosvenor.
Very much so.
Talk about her.
Uh, Ishmael, there was I forget who it was, some writer, a French Senegalese writer, I don't know who he was, said, the thing with you African Americans is that you don't have any cuisine. And if you looked at him and said, have you never read Verda Mae Grosvenor? And the French writer, he didn't even know who she was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Verda was the folklorist.
Well, what I always been impressed by. I had a resume, and well, two things. I will always be grateful for Verda Mae. One, when she was at NPR. She pulled me
Mhm.
into her office, and that was the first time I heard she had gotten all these tapes from the Library of Congress of Zora Hurston speaking.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so I was always grateful. But then the thing I always was impressed by on her resume, it said "Sun Goddess" because she was one of the women with Sunrise. Sunrise would
Oh,
have to, yeah. So she was,
very much so.
yeah.
Very
So
much.
she was the Sun Goddess.
Yeah, at Brown at the same time was George Houston Bass, who was the personal
Right.
secretary of Langston Hughes the last 7 years of his life,
Mm-hmm.
right? Who put it to stink when Harvard got Langston Hughes papers instead of Emory or one of those. It was George Houston Bass who put up
Bass, right,
in laws.
right, yeah,
He laws,
yeah.
right? George was there. Brother I was there.
Brother, right.
Brother I was there, right? All these people were there at the same time. Brother I and Verda Mae were in Sunrise Band at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And Verda Sunrise gave something where Verda threw up her hands and sparks flew out of them, right? But also Tuesday, Thursday, and every other Sunday, which is the
Mm-hmm.
book on maids, on black
Mm-hmm.
maids,
Mm-hmm.
right? You get Tuesday off, Thursday off, and every other Sunday. And so all that came from Verda May. So that's what Verda was about. She was about that,
Yeah, vibration cooking.
vibration cooking. Yeah, the travels of a Geechee
Right,
girl, right?
right.
When Verda went to Paris, interesting enough, she told me, I said, how did you make it in Paris? You didn't speak French. She said, I was walking by this club and she said there was this blues cat who was from the States, and he was arguing with the French owner about his money. And so she said, I could make out how much the French cat was making. And she said, shoot, I wanted that money. She said, the brother walked out with his guitar. I walked in and took the microphone and started singing. She said, and I got hired for a gig.
Sounds like a Josephine Baker story.
Like a, but we was, Josephine Baker, when Hemingway and all those cats was there, Langston Hughes and all those cats were there at the same time.
Right,
You know what I mean? Ethelbert, man.
right, right.
So that's with Verda,
Well, let me as we come to the end of our show. You've been a person of let's say a long journey. you
Yeah,
know,
been a lot.
and talk about some of the places. We didn't get a chance to talk. I mean, we talked about Vietnam. Is there any place key that you visited? You say, okay, this place really influenced me as a writer. I might want to go back there and maybe write about the people, the landscape.
Brazil, hands down. Brazil. You go from the north, Bahia, and Pernambuco, and all that, where everybody's black. Yeah, and they look like us. And Ethelbert, they act like us. That's the funny thing. So they speak Portuguese.
Right.
And then you go to the center to Noio in Portuguese, which is Rio, and you got everything there. And then you hit the south and it looks like you're in Germany or Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And you got all these in that spiritual element and the candomblé and the umbanda and all of that, and the music and the literature. You know, I know you know because we talked about it. You probably don't even remember this. I mentioned Jorge Amado, Jorge Amado, and this was like 30 years ago, and you perked up. And I didn't know of anybody other than myself who knew about Jorge Amado.
Well, let me ask you this question because you're out
Good.
in you're out in Tucson. This is my last one. Why Tucson? I mean, is it the landscape there? Is it indigenous people? Gives you a sense of place and home in Tucson?
I have family here. I retired from the university and the college. It was uh, retirement friendly. Since we had been here, my wife being a healer and a spiritualist and what have you, she has connected all of this element that's here in Arizona uh, that I didn't know about. You know, talking about the women in your life.
Hmm.
I have one who is par excellence, and I
Hmm.
wouldn't be alive if it were not for her. Literally, I'd be dead. But
Hmm.
anyway, those elements are here. I haven't tapped into them. I have not really tapped into the element, the literary elements in Tucson because it's of a particular uh, brothers are kind of not uh, uh, brothers have a interesting position with this community here that's not very welcoming sometimes. I don't want to go into detail, but you know what I mean.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
Are you, this is my last question actually. Are you affected by environmental change? I know when I look at how I mean, I used to be out in Las Vegas for a time, but when I look at these temperatures in Phoenix and places like that, it just seems that it's extremely high now.
105 in Tucson, 115 in Phoenix.
Hmm.
You don't go outside.
Yeah.
If you do, you go out and come back real quick.
So you're out there working on your colors, what you're trying to tell me.
Yeah, I'm working on my colors. Thank you, brother.
Okay.
I'm working on my
What color? All right.
my colors, which is sound. Thank you, Ethelbert, man.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Kambon Obayani, for being my guest. Kambon Obayani is living, as we mentioned, in Tucson, Arizona. We've been sharing his work from Argos and Aphorism and also Blue Moon Murmurs. And he is the founder and producer of Jazz Maya Productions and Publication. So, the show's on the margin. My name's Ethelbert Miller. The station's WPFW 89.3 FM.
Thank you, man.
Okay. Let's do this.
What are you reading these days, Ethelbert?